Hi there, I'm Jessie. I'm a master's level intern at Pikes Peak Community College Counseling Center, and I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk to you about depression. Now, depression can show itself in several different ways, right? We can experience loss of appetite. We can experience insomnia, trouble sleeping, or hypersomnia, where we want to sleep a great deal. We can experience a decrease in our ability to focus, especially on our studies or our family, or the inability to feel pleasure, right? We can have a sense of increased guilt or worthlessness, helplessness, hopelessness. We can even have suicidal ideation with depression. And depression, is known to be genetic, can have a genetic component to it, hormonal component, biological neurotransmitter issues, right? But also in there, which I think is really important to recognize, is that depression also has a mental health element to it, right? Now, genetics, biological components, that at the counseling center, we would recommend that you see a medical professional for that. However, with depression, so often what happens is your mindset, and it can exacerbate your depressive state. And let's think about this from a place of the pandemic, right? So many of us are experiencing levels of depression because of such significant change, and I would say grief, really. Right? Because we're grieving what we knew to be true about life, about our safety, about our families, about our routine. We're grieving, there's that symbolic loss. And for many of us, there is loss from death. And so that certainly is going to impact depression. Now let's think about depression from this place. Depression often means depressed. So it's what we depress down, what we do not face head on, right? So we might be in a situation, a relationship, a family situation where we are unable to have healthy communication. And so we start to develop beliefs about ourselves, about our worthiness, our ability to engage, our worthiness of life, our worthiness of happiness, right? And so that communication then gets skewed, and we, instead of wanting to encourage that relationship, encourage that healthiness within the relationship, we depress those feelings. We might feel anger. Anger is actually an unrecognized and unfamiliar symptom of depression, where we can lash out in anger, and that can happen because we have so many things depressed down. I kind of think about it as like a lid on a can, right? We just keep stuffing more in there and pushing that lid down, stuffing more in there and pushing that lid down, and then eventually something will trigger us that blows that lid, and that's our explosion of anger, frustration, right? And especially if we have not been working on those communication skills or healthy relationship skills, that's likely not going to come out in a way that serves us and gets us to the ultimate type of relationship we want to have. Right? And that can show itself in our schoolwork, right? We avoid going online, going to check in, going to do our homework, avoiding discussions, avoiding turning our camera on, right? There's a lot of ways that it's going to show itself. And so at the counseling center, a great deal of what we do is work with that mindset specifically. So we start to address those underlying beliefs, the beliefs that make you want to turn away from triggers, from challenging situations, from those things that you've experienced in the past that didn't go well and you just don't want to deal with them again. We turn ourselves away, right? So we can work with you to acknowledge what are the beliefs that have built themselves within you that make you feel safer to depress them rather than to challenge them, to face them, to address them. Okay, so that's something that we highly encourage students to come to us to talk about, especially now, because there is so much happening, so much, and it almost feels like it's impossible to process it all. So we have to start to compartmentalize it, to depress that down a little bit, because we can't deal with everything at one time. So when you come to the counseling center, it's obviously a safe and confidential space where we have an opportunity to talk through those things and sort them out and work through that processing so that you can maintain a healthy mindset. And that, especially if you experience biological depression, that can help alleviate that to an extent, obviously, if that's your issue, is the biological component. But for many, it's situational, and the pandemic certainly is situational, let's hope. So we highly encourage you to come. 2 out of 10 people come for services to treat their depression. That's a lot of people suffering. So we are here for you at the Counseling Center, and we highly encourage you to come in, especially during this time. Thanks so much for joining me today.